Across the world, it's become harder to source talent and to retain them, and it's definitely becoming an increasing problem. So with so much at stake, decision makers across enterprises and governments are facing tremendous pressure to tackle the challenge of finding, developing, and retaining digital talent. So during this webinar, we'll discuss 3 ways to bridge the digital skills gap, including challenges and opportunities facing Nigeria. So let's start by framing the problem as numbers. So if we move on to the next slide. Jamoki, can we move the next slide?
Okay, I think I have a bit of a technical challenge doing that. Give me a second, please.
Okay. All right, so whilst we're waiting for the slide to move forward, I'll start framing the problem in numbers. So firstly, in a report commissioned by Salesforce, it reported that 14 of the G20 countries could miss out on $11.5 trillion of cumulative GDP growth, a really substantial impact. 92% of organizations say they are struggling to hire technical talent with sufficient cloud computing skills. And nearly a third of top tech companies have technical jobs remaining open. And this is resulting in hiring pressures and market shortages across software engineers, data scientists, and DevOps roles. And the gap is widening. We're seeing with cybersecurity jobs expanding to nearly 3.5 million positions needed by 2025. Imagine 3.5 million by 2025, and a shortage of 1.2 million software engineers projected in the US by 2026. These are significant numbers, and it can help us understand why we're seeing such pressures in finding digital talent. As the number of technical jobs increase, we're also losing existing talent, and in particular among women in tech. And that has actually widened that gap as a result of COVID and the impact on women during that time. And we're also seeing that overall, more people are deciding to change careers and move out of the tech industry. So in general, a really significant impact just framed by a few numbers. So Jamoki, if we move to the next slide, I would like to first of all welcome you all and thank you again for joining us today. And I'd like to introduce my colleagues who will also be joining me delivering this webinar. I have with me Dr. Rutendo Hindingwe, who is our Africa Regional Director for Elevate. And Elevate is our digital skilling company offering skilling for employability and role-based learning across Africa, actually worldwide, but Rutendo focuses on Africa. And also Bola Olusanya, who is our country manager for Nigeria, for our Tech Experts company. This is our technical talent company. He'll tell you a little bit more about that, but we have 2,000 amazing technical engineers based in our very nice offices in Victoria Island, Lagos. And then on the right-hand side, just a brief explanation of what we do between Tech Experts and Elevate. We help companies globally source talent, skill talent, grow talent, and then scale their talent needs, either through direct client hiring, employer of record, or outsourced services. So our entire business is around addressing the technical talent challenges that companies and governments are facing globally. So let's move on to the next slide and just talk a little bit about what is contributed to the digital skills gaps. And 4 things that I will just very briefly mention here. The first is the fourth industrial revolution. It was essentially thrust into warp speed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. We saw companies around the world having to accelerate their digital transformations. And at the same time, many companies also introduced the concept of work from anywhere. And this work from anywhere policy has essentially contributed to the skills gaps in some countries where they never expected to see it, because the world opened up to the technical workers. They are now able to get jobs in with companies that they could never have considered before. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on when we talk about the impact that that has, both good and potentially bad, on Nigeria. So with that, I'm just going to ask you, Bola, if you want to comment on other factors that are contributing to the digital skills gap specific to Nigeria.
Thank you, Elaine. Nigeria is facing its own set of challenges that is leading to brain drain in the country. And for example, research has it that 52% of Africans between the age of 18 and 24 years are likely to immigrate over the next couple of years. But on the other side, Nigeria has a very huge talent base. This talent base are also tempted to move overseas for different opportunities, especially to work for global technology organizations. However, over 600,000 graduates leave the tertiary institution every year, and this is a very high number of untapped talents. And this talent cuts across IT, engineering, business, and management that the country can take advantage of. And considering that we also have 30% of unemployment rate, that means we have a talent base that can support both the domestic and the global clients. And also we have the young generation, which are technologically savvy. They are into software engineering, cybersecurity, and different areas of IT. And this group has the capability to support organizations in IT outsourcing. They are more than enough to support both local organizations and global organizations. So back to you, Elaine, to share how companies are addressing these challenges globally.
Thank you, Bola. And Jamoke, can you move on? I think we just missed Bola's slide. There you go. So if you could move on one more to my next slide. So how are companies and again, governments globally addressing the digital skills gap? So there are three primary strategies that we are seeing taking shape. And I want to take a little bit of time just to run you through these three different strategies. So the first we're seeing is companies, and again, governments, investing in their current workforce. Now we'll talk about that because, of course, companies have always invested in to some degree in skilling their workforce, but we're seeing a real change in the approach to skilling the workforce and the outcomes that companies are looking for. So the first thing we're seeing that companies are really doing is saying, we can no longer just go and buy the talent and bring them into the company. We have to grow people from within. This is leading to this investment in the current workforce. We're also seeing, great for Africa, but it is being seen as the new global talent pool. At Tech Experts, we're doing a significant amount to promote Africa as an outsourcing location. As I said, we have already nearly 2,000 people in Lagos. We have a few hundred people in Rwanda, and we are seeing so much interest in Africa as a new pool for global talent. And the other thing that we are seeing taking place is organizations looking at alternative hiring strategies and hybrids between pure outsourcing and pure insourcing. So again, we will take a little bit of time just to talk you through these three different strategies. So Rotendo, can I hand over to you to talk about companies investing and in their current workforce and some of the things that people are focusing on and considering?
Thanks, Aileen, and a big, I just said a power cut. So if I look a bit darker, it's not because I didn't put lack of lotion, but literally the lights just went off now. So I think they've been jealous. But a big welcome and a good morning. And thank you, Aileen. Really excited about sharing this exciting topic. And more importantly, what we as Elevate, as part of this whole Y&V Tech Talent Solution, have to offer. And just aligning to your point, Aileen. Jomoke, let's go to the next slide because I just want to talk to them. I just some key stats that I want to highlight that align in terms of why it is important to invest in the current workforce. And if you look at the 4 stats that are in front of you, I'll really summarize them in 2 categories. I'll start off with the first one on the left, my left, your right, which really talks to being competitive. And what I mean by being competitive is that for organizations to be competitive in the environment that they operate in, leveraging of digital innovation, one of the key things that the World Economic Forum has highlighted is that 50% of all employees will need digital reskilling. So in other words, the more reskilled resources you've got working for you as an organization, that is in itself a big thing in terms of making you more competitive. Why you've been more competitive? Because you guys have been more productive, more efficient, and even from a career perspective, it's great. So that's one element talking about the impact of competitiveness as an organization. The second element, if you look at the bottom there, it says 65% of all C-level executives say that the best workforce strategy is upskilling and reskilling. So these are the captains of industry saying, guys, for us as an organization to make the difference and the impact that we need to do, we need to either upskill or reskill. We're not retrenching, we're not throwing away resources. All we're doing is let's look at the capability we've got and reskill them and repurpose them to be able to align to the strategy that will make the organization successful. Another key element going to the right side or your left side of the slide deck is talking about retention. You've got all these wonderful people you've invested over the years. You want to keep them. It's important to keep them. 94% of employees stay longer if the company invests in their career. That's what you want. I mean, that's a phenomenal statistic that you keep people because you are skilling them in the right way, and digital makes a big impact there. And then 34% increase in retention rates amongst companies who offer employee development opportunities, just highlighting that point again. So for anything on this slide, it's saying to be competitive organization, skill the guys correctly, to keep the guys in the organization and look after them, skill the guys correctly. And obviously digital skilling is a key component there. Next slide, please, Jumoke. Eileen, just smile at me if I'm going over time because I know
You're doing
if I
fine.
see you not smiling, then I know that I'm not in trouble. And how do we do this? I think this is very important. It's not just in terms of talking about smoke and mirrors, but I think the number one thing, 3 key components that I want to leave with you in terms of how we do this in a strategic and an innovative way is number one, a modern approach to skilling is role-based. What do we mean that by that? Simply saying, okay, as an organization, you've got a strategy. That strategy aligns to processes and plans that you've got within your organization. You want to skill and align resources based on the roles that accommodate the overall big picture. So our training and our equipping aligns with regards to skilling and training the guys based on roles that are relevant to what the organization needs. Absolutely important. The second component is aligned to a career journeys. Every individual has got aspirations and ambitions in terms of what they want to do in life. A person might be a coder now, but they might see themselves as a cloud architect. So you want to not only bring role-based capability, but you also want their career journey to be aligned in terms of where they want to go and where the organization is wanting to go. And the third one, which is absolutely critical, theory without practice is useless. Active learning, being able to apply the theory with regards to the actual practical requirements that are needed. So 3 key components there that are absolutely significant. Let's go to the next slide, please. And just to wrap it up, before I hand it back over to you, Aileen, I think one of the big case stories that we've got, a big success story that we've got from a Nigeria perspective is that we've run a key program. It's pilot at the moment, but now it's going to another level altogether in an employability, sorry, a bit of a tongue twist there, program in Nigeria with 125 young IT graduates coming through a program to skill them, both in terms of technical hard skills and soft skills. And the purpose was to equip them with that next layer of capability so that they're employable. 125 of them came through the program. And just to give you some statistics, 17% of the employers were employed during the program. So even before the program was finished, the guys were already been snatched up, with the balance being obviously snatched up on the completion of the program. What does this highlight again? It highlights 2 fundamental things, and I'm going to hand it back to you, Aileen. Firstly, that we've got the right solution offering in line with what the market needs based on all the components I talked about with regards to digital skilling. More importantly, we're addressing a need that the nation of Nigeria needs with regards to economic growth, development, social development. You tick all the boxes and it's covered by this. So really excited about this program and what it's doing and going to the next level. I can talk water off a duck's back, but I'll be in big trouble if I continue to do so. But again, Aileen, really excited to be part of this webinar and looking forward to the questions thereafter. Back to you, madam.
Thank you, Rutendo. So the investments in the workforce are definitely catching the eye of global companies. And if you remember, we talked about the second strategy that we see companies focusing on is looking for new talent pools, and Africa is definitely one of those new talent pools. And there is significant investment taking place in the growth of Africa skilling. So we're seeing a huge interest in the talent in Africa. So Bola, can I maybe hand over to you to talk about the characteristics of the sort of African and Nigerian talent market and what sets it apart, and why is it becoming so attractive to companies globally?
Okay, thank you, Aline. So just like what's shown on this slide, Africa is emerging as the new global talent pool. So 38% of African software developers today are supporting global clients. This tells us two things: the quality and the capability of the talent that are available in the region. Next, we have global giants like Microsoft, AWS, and Google that continue to increase their investment and presence in Africa, investing in the growth of the sector and also maximizing the opportunities available within the talent pool. Now, what makes Nigeria unique? We have a large population of English speakers. Over 79 million youths are able to speak English excellently. The country is geographically located to support both the EMEA and the North America. So for example, in Tech Expert today, we have over 1,000 people that are supporting Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and I have another 800 people who support businesses across North America and Asia. So that puts us at an advantage. Then the next thing is the cost advantage of outsourcing in Africa. This is a great deal for a lot of businesses around the world. And in the last 5 years, there have been improved IT infrastructure in Nigeria, around from telecoms to power to even the quality of education. A lot of things are improved, and we begin to see this in the quality of the talent available in the country and also the capability of businesses in Nigeria to be able to run and work around the clock with business continuity and support organizations globally. This is why Nigeria, especially Africa, has been ranked as top 7 destination for global business services, business process outsourcing. And Nigeria has that large talent pool and infrastructure to be able to support this. So I'll hand over back to Elaine to discuss alternative hiring strategies.
Thank you, Bola. And so the third thing that we said that companies were starting to look at was alternative hiring strategies. So yes, they are looking to upskill and reskill their current workforce. And yes, they are definitely looking at new locations to find sources of talent that they perhaps haven't been able to get access to before. And as we said, Africa has an abundance of talent. Elsewhere in the world, there is a shortage of talent, and we see the two problem and problem solution coming together. So when we think about alternative hiring strategies, the first thing that we're seeing is the emphasis on outsourcing. This is not a new thing, but it is increasing. So more companies are outsourcing. 74% of IT businesses are already outsourcing their business processes. And what happened during the pandemic is many companies realized that they were overly dependent on a single location, mainly Philippines or India, which are the more typical outsourcing large-scale operations. And so this has also brought back the new focus on looking for new locations such as Africa. So we're seeing the outsourcing business industry definitely increase. The other thing that is of note is that the employer of record market is growing. This is where an organization will hire people on your behalf. This is a service that we are now offering at Tech Experts, where the employer of record will source the talent, If you wish, they will train the talent and then employ them on your behalf. So manage payroll and all the employer related things, but the client actually then just manages the day-to-day work and outcome of the work of the employee. And this market globally is growing, and that is a direct link to the fact that people are now looking for talent in new locations, but where they don't necessarily have a legal entity through which they can employ people. And the third thing that I think is worth commenting on is the percentage of remote workers. And again, this is very impactful in Nigeria also, because the statistic that Bola mentioned earlier with the percentage of software developers across Africa who are now working for international clients, those international clients are allowing working from home or some hybrid model. So what this means is that whether you are competing locally or globally for talent, we have to consider whether you're hiring direct, outsourcing, or using an employer of record. Remote working or hybrid working is becoming an expectation of employees, and many companies are offering it, whether we like it or not. And so these are some of the trends that we're seeing, that companies are looking very differently. Before, it would have been no way can you work from home. Now it is definitely a consideration. Before, it would have been no way will we hire people in countries where we don't have legal entities and physical locations. Now that is definitely an option. And before, we would have seen people concentrate their outsourcing on only the business processes. Now that is expanding to much more technical type of work and new locations, including Africa. So with that, Bola, can I hand back over to you just to tell us a little bit about how you managed to attract and retain local talent in Nigeria? Because we've just said it's now becoming a competitive market. We have nearly 2,000 people, and that is growing. So how do you do it?
Okay, thank you, Elaine. So I'll start this by talking about our success story in Tech Expert Nigeria. Today, we host over 2,000 full-time employees, IT professionals, software engineers into different areas doing high-level technical support, cloud technologies, enterprise solutions, CRM, developers, professional services, and IT outsourcing. So today, it's a team of 2,000 people. I have over 120 team managers, 100 people that are into business enablement, from quality analysts to trainers to instructional designers. And all of them have grown through the ranks over the last 4 years. In the last 4 years, in partnership with our sister company, Elevate, we've been able to train 3,000 professionals. 2,000 of them are working with us today. Another 1,000 are either into IT outsourcing or have gone to support different organizations and government in their business transformation agenda. But basically, I'll talk to this looking at the four wheel. First is we've been able to attract talent as a brand in the industry through our sourcing unit, where we are able to source, we are able to train them, we are able to grow them within the organization. And really, like what my colleague Rotendo mentioned earlier on, 94% of employees will stay with their organization if we are able to train them and give them a career journey. So what we've done is we have a talent management solution that is called WISE. And through WISE, I'm able to understand the career journey of every employee. We're able to give them customized journey. We're able to give them the exposure they want to either work with local organization or global brands. And we've done this successfully over the last 4 years. And the other thing is we've also encouraged the number of women in technology. So when we started 4 years ago with 200 people, we had just 10% of women that were into IT, because it was an industry everyone thought, oh, it's an industry for men. But today I'm excited that out of the 2,000 workforce, we have 30% of us, 30% women that are within the team. And some of them came from the non-traditional background backgrounds that are not related to science and technology, but we've been able to train them through our LEAP program in partnership with Microsoft and other in-house programs that are fully focused to encourage more women in IT. And they've joined from non-technical backgrounds. They've moved into technical roles. Some have become subject matter experts, and some have even become operations managers, leading technical team within the organizations, and they are doing this successfully. And so basically, to be able to retain talent, one, you must invest in the training. You must be able to give them a career journey and give them the exposure they want. If not, talent will continue to move around, not just in Nigeria. This is something that affects everyone globally. But for tech, we've done this successfully in the last 4 years, able to retain, keep, and manage 2,000 teams successfully. We're looking at even doubling our operations in Nigeria over the next 2 years. So, Elaine, I'll hand over to you to also discuss other strategies on how organizations are able to bridge the digital gap globally.
All right, thank you, Bola. So I'm just going to wrap up and then enable us to open up for any questions. So just to summarize the sort of 3 strategies and things to think about. Firstly, and we've really emphasized it during this call, look within your own organization, grow the people from within. And even if, as Bola just outlined, you have people who don't necessarily have a traditional background in technology, many people are capable of reskilling and then upskilling. So look within your own organization for talent pools and look at the roles that you have now and the roles that you are going to need in the near and distant future, and have plans for how you can grow people into those roles. That will also help with retaining talent that you want to retain within your organization. The second thing that we would just really encourage you to think about is knowing your competition for talent. So, and again, particularly in Nigeria, where we've seen that there is this exodus of talent to locations such as Canada, the UK. You are now competing on a global scale for Nigerian talent. And so we are already seeing local companies finding it much harder to get access to talent where once there was an abundance. And so be very clear on your competition. It's no longer just local companies, and know what global companies are offering. As we said, companies are offering, work from home, hybrid models, and it's a very different environment than perhaps we were all used to just even 2-3 years ago. And then thirdly, we're seeing lots of companies, again, globally, considering alternative ways of getting access to the talent, either through outsourcing. So you're essentially offloading the problem of finding the talent, training the talent, and managing the talent through to the next best option for clients often, which is the employer of record, where somebody else is still finding the talent and hiring the talent, but then you are able to manage them for the work that you wish to get them to do. And then through just straightforward hiring yourself. So companies are now looking at these. And so again, just encouraging everybody to think about more broadly ways of getting access to the digital talent as it becomes available. So with that, I think we've concluded the content that we had to cover today. And we're able to open up the chat for questions. And I think, Jamoke, you're moderating the questions for us.
Yes, I am moderating the question. So thank you so much, everyone. I think even for somebody who works in the organization, I've also been able to learn a lot from today's session. And I got a question for Rutendo. While he was talking about the Microsoft Elevate training that happened, a question came in regarding that, and you spoke on the soft skills and power skills. So people want to know the difference between the soft skills and the power skills and how you are able to balance that during the training.
Thanks, Jumoke. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes, loud and clear.
Well, soft skills are not hard and hard skills are not soft. So that's the simple answer. But I think more importantly, it's a very important question and I'll line to it. I think firstly is that in layman's terms, when we talk about hard skills, it's the technical skills. And obviously our focus is digital skilling. So for example, in the case of Microsoft, for that program that we ran, there were specific technical skills that the students went through, whether it was cloud architecture, whether it was UI, I'm getting a very technical now, but that's what traditionally you call your hard skills, the technical, theoretical components of it, which are absolutely important. And to a larger extent, are actually covered when the guys go through the tertiary education system. The soft skills, on the other hand, are the more, I call them sort of the intangibles, the components of learning that you don't necessarily get out of theory, but are necessary for you to be employable. For example, be able to communicate, be able to present, be able to have a consultative mindset, because it's not just about bringing a technical solution when you're talking about digital and innovation, but it's also being able to bring it across well. The power that I think we have, or the value proposition that we offer through YNV Tech Talent, obviously with Elevate being the skilling hub, and obviously Tech Experts themselves offering the other components, is that we're able to give a blended component in terms of equipping the students through the combination of hard skills and technical skills. How do we do this? Active learning program. I highlighted this about it in terms of the training. So as the guys are actually going through the training, they're actually given practical experiences that allows them to be immersed, where they apply both the technical knowledge as well as the non-technical knowledge or the soft skills. So practice makes perfect. And this is an absolutely critical component, and it makes a significant impact even as they go live on with their career in the working life. So the practical training and immersion through active learning programs that we do as part and parcel of the overall value proposition actually helps them get a blended learning, so that when they do work into the workplace, they've got practical experience as well as a theoretical foundation. I hope that has addressed the question, Jumoke.
Yes.
I can't see the people, but I'm trusting in faith.
Yes, it has. I also want to ask Eileen a question. A question came for her, and this is regarding bridging the digital skills gap. She said, look within the organization. Somebody asked, how do you do that? So is it that you actually see the talent in other people, or the skills in the talents that within the organization, and you say, oh, I think you would be a better fit for this? Or do you wait until this talents come to you and say that, oh, I have this other skills that I think would be applicable in other departments?
Brilliant question, thank you. I think you cannot wait for somebody to come to you. So as a leader in an organization that needs digital talent for current and future roles, you have to have a proactive, well thought through strategy for how you're going to achieve that. So my recommendation is that firstly, you map out the roles that you need now and the roles that you know you're going to need in the future to manage any digital transformation, technology rollouts, and also just for employees to be able to do their jobs in digitally transforming companies. But you've got to map out what your talent needs are going to be. You cannot then sit and wait for people to come to you on the hope that they will come to you and that they will also know what they might be good at doing. So I think as an organization, you need to work with HR and your learning and development organization to find ways of mapping all the people that you have in the company and what are their skills and what are their interests. This is not an insignificant thing to do, by the way. Bola mentioned that we have a platform, TalentWise, which we leverage to enable us to conduct assessments and then match the people based on the assessments to the criteria or the skills required for job roles. So if you can find a way to map the roles, map the skills, and then assess the skills of the people that you've currently got, plus some of the soft skills, their aptitude for learning, their mindset towards technology. You need to then map people, and of course they've got to have a desire to go that way as well. So this is It is definitely not a sit and wait and hope that people will come to you. It's a big investment in time and effort, but it is the only way if you're going to sort of keep ahead of the talent gaps and the digital skills needs now and for the future.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Eileen. So I just want to remind people that please share your questions on the comment, what's it called, chat, and then we would be able to get to it there. So Bola, this next question is for you. There is a gaping hole, if I dare say, in the digital skills, what's it called, in Nigeria. And I wanted to say, if you wanted people to take out 3 things from today's session, what would it be?
Wow, okay. Thank you, Jumoke, for the question. So basically, I'll make reference to the things I started with. Nigeria has over 600,000 university graduates every year. We have what it takes to support to supply talent to both the local Nigerian economy and to the global clients. Secondly, our unemployment rate is 32%, which means there are millions of talents that don't have jobs, but we need to close the gap. And that goes to what we tend to mention, that if companies are willing to invest in training, upskilling, cutting across technical skills, art skills, soft skills, business skills, we are able to close that talent gap that is required in the industry today. Then the last thing is making reference to what Elaine said, that organizations now need to understand that you're not competing with the company next door. You're competing with a global client, because the tech talent today can work remotely, so is willing to work for organizations anywhere in the world. They want to be flexible to either work from home or have hybrid solutions. They want to be trained. Organizations must be willing to train them, not just focus on local software solutions, but expose them to global clients and bring out the best potentials in them. Organizations must have a talent management solution where you identify every talent and say, this is a career journey for this individual. For the next 4 to 5 years, this is what this person wants to be. So the employee might join you as a software engineer, but wants to live as a solution architect. So as you have your digital strategy for the organization, you must take into consideration upskilling and training employees, talent, to be able to fit into that role. So those are the key things for me. And this go back into the will that we make reference to earlier on, that organization must be willing, not just us, you must be ready to skill, you must grow them, you must manage them to be able to retain talents. And that, at the end of the day, close the digital gap we have in the country.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bola. And I would like to remind everyone again, if you have any questions, please put it on the Q&A chat box or just the chat box, and then we would get to it. My next question now is for Eileen. So somebody is asking, what are the sustainable ways of developing digital skills in multinational organizations with presence in different countries?
Sustainable ways of developing skills in
national organizations, yes.
With presence in different countries.
Yes.
So I think, I'm not sure, to be honest, that it is a different challenge, whether it's a multinational company or a local company, other than, as Bola said, to consider that we are now competing on a global talent for global talent. So therefore, we need to consider that all talent is important to be skilled. So first of all, I think it's considering that all of the workforces, regardless of where they're located, for a multinational company, has to think about how they skill everybody, and not just focus on head office or high cost labor locations. The second thing, in terms of making skilling sustainable, it can be very expensive if you're continually skilling your workforce and new people joining. So investing in the L&D organization so that you can grow trainers from within. And of course, look at all the different ways of getting access to training. Some of this can be self-paced training, self-paced learning, but for that, you need to also give people an allowance of time to be able to invest in taking the self-paced learning. So it's really looking at all the different ways of delivering or getting access to the learning, whether it's instructor-led, whether it's virtual instructor-led, self-paced learning, community-based learning. It's having a holistic learning strategy that is for the long term. And again, making that global. If it's a multinational company, don't just keep access to the knowledge and to the skills within each country. Share that knowledge globally, share the trainers globally, share the content globally. You can have ways, again, in terms of helping things be sustainable. You can even put programs in place that have your employees contribute to content. So, you know, when they've learned something, when they've had a new experience, sharing those learning experiences that can then become part of the learning content. Again, also ways of making the whole ongoing learning journey more sustainable.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you very much for that. Rutendo, your hand is up, so I believe you have something to, you know, add to that.
No. I was just adding to what Eileen was talking about in terms of
Great.
making multinational models more sustainable. I think, and she highlighted this before, the remote workforce is that it becomes such a strategic player. And that's where we obviously have got value with what we're doing in Nigeria, that you're able to have a pool of skills that are trained at world-class capability to be able to support multinationals through YNV Tech Talent Solutions. So I was just dovetailing onto that. So
thank you, Rutendo. Bala, this next question is for you. And the question is from me, actually. Like I said, I'm learning a whole lot, despite the fact that, you know, we work in the same companies. All this session has also been very eye-opening for me. I attended a conference a few weeks ago, and there were a lot of startups. We know that startups are very big in Nigeria, especially fintechs in Nigeria, and they get investors almost every other day. And one of the challenges a founder actually spoke to was that growth was a challenge. The founder said they grow exponentially. So, for example, if they maybe came into the market thinking the growth would be about 200% in a year, they tend to have maybe like a 5,000% growth in a year. And that is a challenge that they do not know the solution for or how to solve, especially when it comes to talent and software engineers. So I was thinking, do you have a piece of advice for any founder who would think or has this kind of challenge?
Okay, so Tech Expert has done it successfully for 4 years in Nigeria. We started the operations in 2018 with a team of about 200 software engineers supporting different technologies from cloud to networks to security to software development. And in the last 4 years, we've been able to move from 200 people to 2,000 people, and they are doing successfully, and it's scalable as long as you are able to follow the 4-wheel, where you have the capability, like we mentioned earlier on, to be able to source your talents. You put key focus on training and retaining your talents. So we are what it takes to scale. So we have the YNV Tech Talent Solution that can offer any startup. We are willing to partner with any startup and take them through the digital journey. And going back to what Rutendo mentioned, for startups, digital transformation is not just about tech talents. One, the technical talent is key, but two, the soft skills is also key. You need the soft skills to be able to keep your client, to be able to manage your customers, to be able to manage the business and collaborate well. You also need the business skills. That is required for, if you are going at 500% now, if you have good business skills, you can actually go at 1,000%. So tech talent can give you a complete solution. Elevate team out the digital transformation journey, where we can partner with you and help you collaborate these 3 things together: technical talents, business skills, soft skills, and give you a complete solution where you are able to transform and grow the organization. If we've done from 200 to 2,000, I'm sure we have the capability to go from 2,000 today to 10,000. And the fact that when you look at the YMV group, we've operated for 12 years. And today we operate across 10 different countries. So we understand what it takes to run business in emerging nations because we've done this in different locations over the last 10 years. We have our offices across in the US, in Costa Rica, in Bulgaria, in Vietnam, in China. So we understand what it takes to run business in emerging nations, and we are willing to give all the support to startups within the country based on our wealth of experience across multiple locations and based on our success story in Nigeria over the last 4 years.
Thank you so much for that, Paula. And then there is a question I think you've already answered, but I'm sure the person who put it, Mr. Festus, would also maybe want an answer to that. So he says, and Richard, I'll just push this over to you. He says, how is bridging the digital skills gap relevant in the banking or financial sector?
Okay, so a very critical question, and I'll answer it in short. If you look at the investment that is going with regards to technology in the financial sector at the moment, it's massive, it's unprecedented. And why? Because the demand for online transactions, for digital transactions, digital transformation is quite significant in the banking industry. So which is great because it unlocks a lot of competitiveness, it unlocks a lot of services and a lot of capability for the economy. But at the same time, it creates an unprecedented demand with regards to skill sets. The traditional model of addressing the skill sets and the human capital development to address the digital capability is no longer adequate. People can't employ and upskill and train people fast enough in terms of just the traditional model. And that's why if you look at our Y&V Tech Talent Solution, which is a combination of tech experts and what Elevate brings to the party, is that we are trying to help in terms of unburden that responsibility from the banks by offering and supporting with regards to skilling and training, and also allowing them to outsource some of that capability. So in other words, we're saying to the banks, focus on your core business and have a partner like ourselves whose capability and whose core business is digitally skilling and enabling. So it's actually a match made in heaven with regards to addressing that solution. And I think it'll be good also, Aileen, to hear from you, because I think this is quite a critical component in terms of the value proposition of Y&V Tech Talent with regards to the banking and the financial industry.
Yes, thanks, Rotenda. And I will just wrap up because I can see we're over time. So don't want to take too long, but absolutely in the financial sector, every bank that you come across is going through a digital transformation. Banks cannot compete if they don't. There's new digital banks setting up, and so they're digital from the ground up. So, and we also talked earlier about the massive gap in cyber skills. And if we think about how banks need to protect themselves proactively and defensively from a cyber point of view, and the inability to get access to cyber skills is very relevant and significant for banks and the financial industry. So, in general, I don't know of an industry that isn't impacted. Any industry that leverages technology in order to run the business, transform the business, has to be aware of the challenges that they can face in getting access to digital talent, given the global competitive nature now. I think, Jamoki, we probably need to wrap up. I can see more questions still powering in, but we're
yes, there are more questions powering.
Yeah.
So just to wrap this up, I would say that if you need more information on what we do at Tech Experts or Elevate, you could go to our website at www.tech-experts.com or www.elevateme.com. We're also on LinkedIn for both companies, and you can find us on LinkedIn too. So like you said, Aileen, there's still so many questions yet to be answered, but I would give everyone a chance to just go and say one thing that you want people to take away from today's session, and then we could wrap up. So I would start with Rotenda. What is the one thing you want people to take away from this session?
Maybe short and sweet, Jumoke.
Very short.
For any organization, whatever got you to this point in time is not what is going to get you to the next stage. The game changer is digital skilling and innovation in terms of moving you to the next level of competitiveness and making an impact in your organization. And digital skilling and strategy around that is absolutely fundamental. That is my closing note there.
Okay, great. Bola?
I'll basically say 94% of employees will stay longer with organizations that will train them and give them a career journey. So organizations must look internally and train their employees and discuss across all, whether tech talent or business enablement. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So Eileen, I will leave it to you to say the last thing and then help wrap this up.
All right, thank you. And again, just repeating everything we've already said, but not to underestimate the global nature of the competition now for talent. Even if you don't see it today, we know that some companies are, but if you're not seeing it today, it will happen, whether it's 6 months from now, 12 months from now. So don't underestimate and plan ahead and have a strategy for how you're going to grow and access the technical skills that you need.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining in. I hope that you've been able to get at least a few pointers on how to bridge the digital skills gap, not just in Nigeria and Africa, and basically, to be very honest, everywhere all over the world with the way digital transformation is now and the fourth industrial revolution. Like I said earlier, you could find us on LinkedIn. You could go to our website, and also some people have asked where they would get links to the session. You would do that. So if you've registered, which I'm sure you did, and that's why you're here, you would definitely get a link to rewatch this session. Thank you everyone for coming, and thank you so much for joining in, Eileen, Ritendo, and Bola. It was great to hear your perspectives on all of these things. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, everyone.